The people you are about to see and hear are all members of Friends of the Bitterroot, a grassroots group of conservation volunteers working in the Bitterroot, the Rock Creek, the Salmon, and the Big Hole drainages.
Protecting roadless areas has to be the cornerstone of any overall wildland conservation policy.
The Friends of the Bitterroot have been working to protect the areas you are about to see. They form a hub between the North Continental Divide, Salmon Selway, and Greater Yellowstone ecosystems. We believe and hope to demonstrate that they deserve protection. Through our involvement, they have been included in the Northern Rockies Ecosystem Protection Act, a bill now before Congress. The passage of this bill will protect these areas as wilderness. Separating the Bitterroot Valley from the famous Rock Creek drainage lies Stony Mountain in the heart of the Sapphire Range. It's home to one of the largest elk herds in Montana. Migrating to the southwest along the Sapphire Additions, wildlife can find critical habitat in the sleeping child. An island in a sea of clear-cuts, the Sleeping Child Roadless area is the last of the low elevation old growth in the Bitterroot National Forest. Straddling the Continental Divide, the Anaconda-Pentler additions include Tolan Creek, Beaver Lake, the North Big Hole, Balsam, Needle, and Swift Creeks. Located along the Montana-Idaho border, Anderson Mountain has been recommended for wilderness by Idaho Fish and Game, the Idaho Conservation League, the Montana Wilderness Association, the Alliance for the Wild Rockies, and Friends of the Bitterroot. Allen Mountain, a vital biological corridor linking three major ecosystems, attracts people from all over the Northwest for skiing and other recreation. Threatened by mining interests, the Blue Joint forms the headwaters of the Bitterroot River and connects the Bitterroots with the largest contiguous wilderness in the lower 48 states. These grand, massive canyons of glacial moraine and spectacular escarpments make up the Bitterroot additions, much needed by wildlife for low-elevation winter range.
One of the major reasons that it is critical for these wildland areas to be put into wilderness is the fact that over the last 5 decades, the Forest Service has proved that there was no real protection for roadless lands under their management. Therefore, the only tool that we have at this time is wilderness designation.
I've been associated with the logging here for 28 years. I was a logging superintendent for Champion. I've been involved in cutting many hundreds of millions of feet of timber, and it's not all new to me, so I kind of know what has went on and what's going on. There's no federal Forest Service employee that's ever held accountable for any damage that's ever been done on this forest or any other forest. And if you do catch them in something that's been done wrong, well, that was the guy that was here before me 20 years ago, or that was the guy that was here 20 years ago before him. So if you don't have accountability, you don't have credibility. The people don't trust them no more. And I think their track record speaks for itself.
Forest Service monitoring policy must be changed so that managers do not monitor their own work. Forest plans must be revised. Harvest targets must come down to sustainable levels. The allowable sale quantity in the Bitterroot Forest Plan of 33.4 million board feet is unrealistically high and can't be reached without violating environmental laws. The resulting shortfall has angered timber-dependent businesses, working people, and conservationists.
They want to road up this entire national forest, and they want to manage everything that can be managed for timber. But I didn't know, I never know, or was never told that we were mandated to create a gigantic tree farm. It's the road that causes the clear cut, that causes the access, that causes the sedimentation to our water and our fishery. The road is the #1 problem.
On the Bitterroot National Forest, the road density exceeds the forest standard. We have 375,000 miles of roads on the National Forest. That's 15 times the circumference of the Earth, or 8.5 times the interstate highway system. That's 1.5 times to the moon and back. Roads, once a road is constructed into a roadless area, that area is no longer available for wilderness designation. They encourage the invasion of weedy species like spotted knapweed and leafy spurge, which has become a problem. They encourage road hunting, poaching, litter bugs, off-road vehicle use, and roads simply are bad for the habitat. We need to start reclaiming and restoring roads. We need to recontour them and reseed them, and we can put folks to work in some kind of a wildlands recovery corps, restoring wilderness. And one of the major things that would employ them for a long period of time would be taking out roads.
We've got to pay more attention to protecting the topsoil. The forest is what builds the soil, and it protects it from erosion. The roots hold the soil in place, and the leaves and needles are what builds the nutrients in the soil. When you remove the forest, you remove the source of nutrition, you remove the stability. These areas that we're talking about protecting here are particularly erosive and fragile. They're on the steep ground. Blue Joint is one of the wilderness study areas, and it's being subjected to geological exploration for gold deposit by a large mining company from Canada I mean, I'm a miner, I'm an exploration geologist, and I work for the mining industry, but I really do believe that there are some places that are not suitable for mining, and Blue Joint is definitely one. The values in Blue Joint for the biological diversity, for wildlife, and for clean water, and what the forests are contributing, far exceeds the values that you could get from a gold mine operation.
We taxpayers pay for the destruction of our own forests. We pay again to stop the destruction and again to repair the damage.
In the future, what's important is going to be what we learn from nature, not what we extract from it. And in order to keep learning from nature, we have to safeguard naturalness, which is the wellspring of good ideas. There's not that much natural land left. In forested ecosystems, we only have 4% of our original forests left, and only 1% of that is protected. When we're safeguarding that 1%, I think we're safeguarding our future. Scientists will tell you that we simply don't know enough yet about these complex and elegant processes that keep air clean, that keep water clean, that hold soil on the slopes, that keep the soil fertile, and that keep a diverse array of species living and interacting and evolving. People ask, why can't we just have a very small area, put a fence around that, and that will be our repository of ideas? Well, as we know, when you fragment an area, you simplify its roster of species. We need areas that are large enough to have species evolution occurring, to be able to have ecosystems breathe. They breathe materials and genes and nutrients with the ecosystems next to them.
We've learned in the last 10 years from conservation biologists like Dr. Michael Soule and Reed Noss that what we need in order to protect biological diversity is an interrelated system of large inviolate nature preserves surrounded by buffer zones where multiple use type activities can occur in a very gentle manner, and have these inviolate conservation reserve areas connected by habitat corridors so that large mammals and other wild native forms of life can exchange genetic material on a periodic basis. And it's important to realize that habitat corridors aren't like an analogy of highways or anything like that. It's not something where you're going to have a constant stream of animals moving back and forth. Really, all you have to do to protect the genetic integrity of a population is to occasionally have an infusion of new blood into that population.
And scientists say corridors need to be 30 miles wide and contain lower elevations. Isn't it time that the decisions should be based on science and not politics? According to a recent economic study, Montana counties which are located near wildlands, once dependent on resource extraction, now prosper in spite of a national recession and a slump in the timber industry.
This is great country. We have magnificent mountains, we have rich wildlife, and I think people here must decide what they want to do. This isn't only a concern of Montanans and those in the Bitterroot, it's a concern of people everywhere because everyone owns a piece of these wild lands. The roadless areas are few, they're remnants, they're what are left over. And now we see a campaign on the part of the major timber companies to put pressure to get the last of what's left. The Forest Service goes along with the construction of roads and the loss of the habitat that's so important.
But we've got all these people with this clear-cut mentality, the same type that almost exterminated the buffalo, that are out here wanting to exploit everything we've got. Well, I'm no radical. I've been there, and I know what I'm talking about. Things got to be done right.
It's not at all a radical idea to ask to save what's left. Actually, it's a very conservative idea.
I would strongly advocate that these lands be set aside as part of the wilderness system.
Would you like to help? Then join a local environmental organization like Friends of the Bitterroot. Write letters to the editor, your congressperson, and senators supporting the Northern Rockies Ecosystem Protection Act, House Bill 2638. Tell your friends about the destruction of your public lands. Get active.